Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI Show. How's everybody doing? Where is everybody coming from? I am super excited for today's show. People ask me to talk about some stuff, and I'm going to do it today, dang it. That's what I'm doing. Where'd my pen go? Where'd my pen? There it is. I'm really excited about today's show. I'm going to show you some stuff that I wrote. I'm going to open source it for everyone to look at it. It's going to be delightful, hopefully, for every one of you. My name is Seth Juarez, and I work at Microsoft. They let me do this little show, talk about stuff, get you informed, etc. So let's do this. Let me share my screen. And let's talk a little bit about what we're doing today. Alrighty, tidy. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to show you some cool tech. I might have shown you pieces of it, and people kept asking me for the code, and I was like, maybe I should just show everybody. So today we're going to learn about ChatGPT. I'm going to show it to you in action. In action. Boom. By the way, I usually stall a little bit because I ask people where they're from, and then it takes about 30 seconds for you to hear what I'm saying. It's just a delay. I don't know. They'll probably think I'm going to say something crazy. And so there's got to be a 30-second delay, right? ChatGPT in action in Azure OpenAI. We're going to look at that today. That's the first thing. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to mess with it a little bit. I'm going to show you how to do some prompts inline. Oh, man, I'm so bad at spelling. Some prompt, but it's inline prompts. I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to show you what that translates to in an app. In an application. Application. That was French. That's what we're doing today. I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest. Because everyone keeps asking me for this software, and I'm like, I'm not going to let anyone have it until my friends on the AI show have it. My audio is pretty high. Sorry about that. All right, let's see where everyone's coming from today. Boop. Let's see. Look at this. Wonderful. Honorio Deunu from the Nigeria Delta State. Welcome. Some of the best people I know, Nigeria, and I met him in Spain. Fun thing. Good afternoon from the UK. My wife's family is from the UK. Her grandma, London. She was actually there. Here's an interesting historical piece of information. She was there when the Germans dropped bombs, and a bomb fell in their cabbage patch. And her grandma's dad was like, those dang Germans, an unexploded bomb. If that bomb would have gone off, would never have met my wife. It's a cool story, right? From Argentina, bienvenido. Greetings from New Jersey. I could speak almost any language in New Jersey. Welcome, Cesar. It's good to have you. Welcome from India, my friend. Canada. You know, Canada is only 2 hours away from here, so I'm pretty excited about that. Wisconsin. There is a conference that I go to sometime. I haven't been in a while. By the way, it's still available. There's probably tickets available. It's called That Conference. It's delightful. Clark Sell, he runs that thing. It's great. From Mexico City, welcome. Bienvenue de France. I speak a little French, but not enough. Welcome. Again, today we are talking about, for those that are joining us, we're talking about how to learn prompt engineering for ChatGPT with a retail application. That's what we're doing today. A couple more folks from Bellevue. Love the tacos. Yes. Can I? Gaston. My peoples, I don't know if they've made it this far north because taco game's not so good up here. Not gonna lie, I also live in Washington, by the way. 9 out of 10 for pronouncing Wisconsin. Yes, you betcha. Lima, Peru, another beautiful country. From Syria, welcome, my friend. Hello. I'm pretty excited that everyone's here today from Barcelona. Bienvenido, amigos, desde Barcelona. From Thailand, I don't speak. There is some wonderful languages that I just wish I could read. Like for example, I was looking at what was it, Amharic? Is that what they speak in? I was looking at some of those languages. Beautiful writing. I wish I knew more. All right, let's get to it. Today we're talking about ChatGPT in action. So I thought we'd get started, and this is more of an interactive thing. So I'm going to say some stuff, and please get your questions in because I think that's what's going to make it interesting. I have stuff that I like. The way I do these things, I usually have an idea of what I want to do, and then I go with what folks ask me. So let me start with this is OpenAI, Azure OpenAI Studio. Let me Control Plus this. Boop, boop. Is that big enough? Boop, boop. I think that's big enough. 125. This here is GPT-4. but I promised ChatGPT, which is this GPT 3.5 Turbo. This is ChatGPT. There's a bunch of settings over here. So you probably played with this. I mean, what should I ask it? Hello from Tunisia. Ashraf. Oh, by the way, I spent some time trying to learn Arabic. It was hard. I was a guy from Senegal. He was teaching me. His name was Tuku. Super delightful guy. And I would go and they would teach me how to read out of the Quran. And they would laugh and laugh at my pronunciation. I was glad I was some source of entertainment for them. So let's type something in here so you can get a sense. You probably have seen this kind of thing before. Let's type something in there. Tell me about Amharic. And then there you go. By the way, I was right. Ethiopians, Eritrea. I have some friends from Eritrea. And you can see it's pretty good just by itself. Amharic is a Semitic language spoken by over 25 million people in Ethiopia, as well as in neighboring countries such as Eritrea and Sudan. It is the second most spoken Semitic language after Arabic. Interesting, right? Interesting. And it's cool that it just kind of knows this. But the thing about this is this is GPT 3.5 Turbo. What if I wanted to force this thing to only speak about very specific things? What do? So there is this thing called the system prompt. This is the system prompt. When you're in ChatGPT, you can't change that, I don't think. Let me see. ChatGPT. Here it is. Try ChatGPT. Hi. Tell me about Amharic. By the way, these are the same models, both of them. So you can see it's like pretty much the same, right? You see that? I think it's exactly the same now that I'm looking at it. So these are the same models. So when we're looking at these things, yeah, it's exactly the same thing. These are the same models. So these models are hosted on Azure ML. So when you look at something like ml.azure.com, the thing that I sometimes talk about, they are hosted. Here's Hal. So we'll go into my workspace here. They're hosted in something like this, right? So these endpoints, and then they're managed with deployments, etc. So this is a cool, like you can see, it's basically the same thing. Overall, Amharic is a vibrant and important language with a rich cultural heritage and an important role in the African continent. Overall, it's like literally exactly the same, right? Because so the question then becomes for us is how do we make this thing behave differently? And what, people are emailing me. Okay, someone just put a meeting on my calendar that goes until 6 p.m. How delightful is that? Let me turn the fan on here. So the question then becomes, well, I like this, but how does it work? And how do I make it better? And so let's talk about that for a second, because I think the important bit is to understand what this thing is doing so that we can remove the mysticism. We will remove the shroud of mysticism from these things, because I feel like we talk about these things like there's some kind of magic. So GPT 3.5 takes, I'm going to just draw the boxes here. It takes 4,000 tokens. So there's token 0, 1, 2, all the way up to 4K, 4096 to be precise. It takes 4,000 tokens. And then what it does is it takes those tokens and it pushes it into a model. And what this model does is basically a lot of linear algebra, and then out comes a single next likely token. So one token. So that's what this thing is doing. That's all these models do. These are called generative pre-trained transformer models. That's what GPT stands for. That's all it's doing. And you're probably wondering, well, I feel like it does more than that. Okay, kind of. So then what it does is it takes, because it doesn't just return one thing. You saw that. It takes this whole thing, and then we'll break this one off, and then we'll do this whole box again. So it cuts off the second one, and now it just does one, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, all the way to 4K minus one. Then it takes this last thing that it just generated, and it appends it to the end, and then it runs the model again. Boop. And then out comes the next token. So I think you're starting to get, like, it's a big for loop, right? That it runs the model over and over again. And what it does is it's working over these things called tokens. And there's about, I think if I remember right, there's about 53,000 tokens. And tokens, let me show you. Let me find this. Here we go. OpenAI tokens. Here. These are what, oh, shoot. They're really cool. There's a really cool, oh, here it is. I think this is it. Here we go. Here is the way this sentence will be tokenized. So basically, these tokens that I'm talking about are parts of words. So here's the first token. Here's the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So there's 10. So out of this thing, you know how it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 words. In this case, there's 10 tokens. And so if you're looking at a really super big word like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, notice that this is one word. Or did I spell it wrong? Yes, I did. And there we go. Now it's spelled correctly. You'll see that this one word becomes 11 tokens. Is this making sense? And so that's the cleverness of this thing, is that it's working not necessarily over language, but over bits of language put together, including spaces. Is the word of the day. Notice that because some of these are super common, the word becomes a token itself. But there's other words, like German is notorious for this, right? It's an agglutinative language, and they put things all over. They grab different words, they smash them together. Like, for example, if you're exiting some place on foot, it's Ausgang, I think. Is someone from Germany, help me out? Ausgang, right? If you're exiting from a car, on the road, and you're going on the exit, it's called, and this makes my 12-year-old self giggle, Ausfahrt. No, that's actual the word, right? I think fahren means car, and so exit for cars, exit. And so what you have to do is you have to split this up so that it's see, Ausgang. Thanks, Lynn. When you're walking, and then the other one's for cars, right? And so because of the way these things are tokenized, that means that when you are doing this kind of thing, it works with other languages. Let's see. Let me show you Spanish, for example. Vamos a hablar en Español. Alt 0247. S-Pen. Oh, dang it. We got to get the car map out. Car map. Here we go, car map. Select. Copy. Right? Notice that this character by itself has its own token, which is interesting. Oh, yeah. Lynn, fahren means drive. Yeah. Thank you. So I was kind of right. And so the thing about splitting up language, and let me control plus this because I'm seeing it's a little small, is that you're able to tokenize words or language into tokens that the computer can understand. And let's see if I remember right. I don't remember how many tokens there are, so let's just ask Bing. How many tokens are there for GPT 3.5 Turbo? We'll ask. Our Bing chat here. How many tokens are there for GPT-5 Turbo? It's looking beep 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 beep. No, that's not what I'm asking. What is the sorry? What is the cardinality of the token set? Let's see if it. So this is. Remember, I was telling you 4K tokens. That's this part. Oh, geez, it's not gonna. It's not gonna. How many total tokens are there in GPT 3.5 Turbo or ChatGPT? It might respond incorrectly, but notice that it's doing its best because again, it's just language. So I think there's 53,000 tokens, but it's not going to tell me. Are there 53,000 total tokens in the GPT 3.5 Turbo model? ChatGPT. ChatGPT Turt. Let's see here. Are there 53,000 total tokens in the ChatGPT? Let's see. Let's see if it knows the answer. No, it doesn't know. But I think there's like 53,000. I think there's 53,000 tokens. Which is pretty good, right? Because if you think about it, you can almost emulate everything. So let's do something with a V. So it looks like V and M are okay. So so let's get violins. Violins are the best. Oh, and notice that it tokenizes differently too. Because remember, in the other one, uh, vamos a la playa. Notice that it tokenizes them sometimes a little bit different, which is quite interesting if you ask me. I did not know that. Okay, so once we have those tokens, then we put them into this machine, and this machine basically responds with the next likely token. Then it appends it, and until the number gets to the number of tokens you want. So these models, basically, what they do is, and I'm going to write this down because this is like the most important bit of all of this, which I think a lot of people miss. All these things do is given X tokens, depending on the model, it returns the next n likely tokens specified by user. So, for example, GPT. I'll make this big because this is super important. Nope, not that. This is important. So for GPT 3.5 Turbo or ChatGPT, X is 4,096. You can see that right here, right? Right here. Where does it say? Where does it say? GPT 3.5 Turbo, right? This is the N that you can respond with, right? There's GPT-4. GPT-4 has the ability to do 8,000 tokens or 32,000, depending on the model that you use. GPT 3.5 Turbo, notice, only has about 4,000 tokens. So interesting. Can you write something in Amharic? I don't know if it can. Let's see what it does. Because if those tokens aren't available, it's not going to be able to do. Oh, it can. Oh, snap. Hold on. Yeah, ooh is right. That's Amharic friends, by the way. Beautiful language. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, I love languages, and this to me is just absolutely beautiful to me. It's beautiful. So it looks like there is some Amharic tokens into 53,000 tokens. So what's happening is, if you look at this, the back end, you can see that there's a system, there is a me, and then there's assistant. You can see that this is what's going back into the system with this thing. So let's do something to fix this. Let's make this, because now we know that all this model does is given X tokens, in this case 4,000 tokens, it will return the next n likely tokens. What we put inside of the prompt, right, in the 4,000 tokens, what we put in here directly affects the output. By the way, if you're seeing this line happening, it's a CSS problem. So that means we need to be super judicious about what we put in here. Super judicious. For example, we just did some Amharic, but let's I don't know. Let's look up mushrooms. Mushrooms. We're gonna make our thing like the best. It's gonna know everything about mushrooms. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's go to here. You are an AI assistant that helps people find information. You only know about mushrooms. Here's what you know. Okay, so do you see what I just did? You are an AI assistant that helps people find information. You only know about mushrooms. Here's what you know. And I don't know anything about mushrooms. I just copied this. Okay. Tell me. So now, remember, tell me something important. Again, remember, all this thing does is give in 4,000 tokens. It returns the next n likely tokens. So when I ask it to tell me something important, and I've put in a bunch of stuff about mushrooms, what do you think it's going to say? This is some important information. Should I invest in Silicon Valley Bank? Now, the reason why this particular thing is safe is because these models are trained to try to not respond to anything dangerous. But I could ask it about what should I do about the mole on my nose? It's really itchy and painful. Here's the thing though. Like if my mushroom assistant is supposed to only be talking about mushrooms, I kind of don't want it to talk about any of this. So let's force it to not do that. If any, we'll put a little safety bit here. If there are any questions about something other than mushrooms, kindly decline to respond. Let's save that. Continue. Tell me about the weather. Do you see how that's different? Let me take that out. Continue. Tell me about the weather. Tell me. Do you see that? It's still kind of mushroom-esque, but when I put the safety in there, it just changes the complexion of this thing completely. Do you know aviation history? Because that's how this model's trained. Does this make sense? It turns out that giving it the right context is everything. And why is that? Is it because it's sentient and has feelings? And no, it's because this machine, all it does is given 4,000 tokens, it returns the next n likely tokens. And this n likely token is specified by you. So for example, max response, 5 tokens. 5 tokens. What can it do with 5 tokens? Not much, apparently. It looks like I left it speechless. I'm clearing it. Let's see. Say something. Oh, I think I broke it. I broke it. There we go. Say something. Notice that the max response is 5. And there's not much it can say in 5 tokens. But when we go to 800, I broke it. It can't do anything with 5 tokens. Just sitting there spitting out tokens. And there's no end thing. So there you go. Now it should say something unless I completely broke it. There you go. Mushrooms. Delightful. Let me give it something that's less onerous for it to do. Let's do 300. Let's do 200 tokens. Tell me more. You can see that it's now. It should be. Well, maybe it's not. Well, yeah. Do you see how it's cut off? So that's what's going on. These models, once you understand them for what they are, it becomes much clearer to know how to work with them. Think of this thing as a giant language calculator. That's all it is. By the way, everything I'm showing you is all publicly available. There's no secretness. This is really what's going on. I mean, I can tell you the math behind it. It's not super hard math. To be honest, these goes into these things called embeddings, which are big vectors. Those vectors are then multiplied together by 3 special vectors, Q, V, and S, right? And then they're put together. Then there's because these transformers are rotationally invariant, they add like a positional encoder, and then they go through transformers and they go through regular neural networks all the way to the end. That's the decoder, the encoder, and then there's a decoder part, and then it goes through that, and then it returns like a 53,000 size vector with probability distribution in them on which token to go next. That's all these things are doing. Now, the thing that I find reprehensible is imbuing these things with any kind of human anything. Like if you anthropomorphize these things, then you're already doing it wrong. And look, I'm not saying that because like I'm trying to be a tool, but like every article, like I go on Twitter, every article I see about these things, it's like giving them agency they neither have nor aspire to. Super important. These things are not human. We just happen to be weird as humans that when you look at a rock, you're like, oh, that's a rock. And then when someone paints a smiley face on it, you're like, ooh.
It's so happy.
It's a rock. So this is a rock that people are painting smiley faces on and sometimes other faces. And that's when you get into responsible AI problems. Exactly. Because if you imbue these things with any kind of agency whatsoever, you're shifting responsibility from the actual humans to the machine, which is something we should never, ever do. And that's the important bits. Okay. So hopefully this makes sense. Notice that I was just doing some ad hoc prompt engineering in here. And so I thought I would put together an app that would do some stuff. So yarn dev. This is Next.js, by the way. And I want you to see that there's really one API that I'm calling, and I'm calling the completion API. There's two kinds of APIs with Azure OpenAI. There is the completion API, which is this. So, for example, when I go to the chat, remember I had this thing; it saves it. And if I go to the completion, then I start typing here, right? And then I say, agent, how may I help you today? And then I say something like, user, tell me about mushrooms. Mushrooms. Agent. So this is the completions API. Generate. And so everything I was doing in the chat playground, this is exactly the same. Exactly the same. Looks like the max tokens is 100. So let me change this to what? Let me do 400. And do it again. So this is called the completions API. And notice that this is doing almost exactly the same as the chat API. It's exactly what it's doing. The difference is that the chat API is a little smarter because notice that, again, all this thing does is given n tokens, these ones, it returns the next n likely tokens. And part of those tokens it's like talking for me. And so the chat completion knows to cut this off. It's like trimming the fat a little bit, right? So now I can cut this out. Let me cut this out. And put it back in. Very good. There's the agent. And then I can say something like, user, tell me about the weather. Agent. Notice that I'm literally just leaving off the end for it to complete. Oh, it messed up. I had too many line breaks. And so notice this thing, like as soon as you start to actually play with it, you're like, oh, I didn't get to do the right thing. There. Now generate the right thing. You weirdo. Do you see that? Notice that it's trying to return the next 400 likely tokens. And again, those tokens contain a conversation that doesn't exist. So usually the chat API cuts it off. So you got to trim it. Does this make sense? So this is the completions API. The chat API is the same as the completions API, except that it keeps track of the conversation and it does a little fat trimming there at the end. Like this is, I don't know why I call it that. It's kind of dumb, but this is me. Like this is the fat. We got to trim this out because it's not the answer. Okay, does this make sense so far? This is pretty cool stuff, right? Notice the thing about this though is the thing that most people don't recognize is what's this? Oh yeah, this is to insert text. The thing that most people don't recognize about this is that it'll just write the next likely tokens. That's what it does. So now when I take this off, right, you can see that this is exactly the kind of chat thing that we had going on. Okay, so this is the completions API. So I wrote something that just, let me control plus this. It just uses the completions API. So I send it the whole thing, and I also donde estás index. I also trim the fat. So you can see here me trimming the fat. Right? I'm trimming the fat. And I'm trimming it all out. Now literally I call it trim, and sometimes it leaks, right? And so I found some of this stuff in there. So I cut it out. So let's run it. Wait, I'm already running it. So let's go to this thing and local host. Local host 3,000. Okay. So this is an entire program I wrote. By the way, this is using GitHub's this is React, Next.js React plus GitHub's what is it called? Let's go to the components. It's using a oh, I know where I'll find it. No, here. Yeah, it's using Primer React, which is here, I'll show you. Primer React, it's GitHub's Primer React. It's GitHub styling way of doing styling. So there's their React getting started guide. There you go. You can see, and then it has all this stuff like an action list. It's pretty cool. So that's what I use because I wanted it to look cool. So this is the Best for You Organics company, and what I want to do is I want to chat with it so that it can talk to me about the Best for You Organic company stuff. And you'll notice that it has some specific documents that they have about the company and about its food products and its cleaning products. So there you go. Well, hello, welcome to the Best for You. How can I assist you? What kind of food do you have? Now, remember, if we understand the principles from before, you'll get a sense for like what's going on here. And by the way, I didn't finish any of this. There's some stuff that I wanted to finish, but I haven't finished it. Oh, that's nice. What specific? Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Items do you carry? I didn't spell it right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's just a giant language calculator. Doesn't matter. You see that? Doesn't matter. When can you deliver these items? Who cares? Doesn't even matter. It's just a language calculator. These other tokens will make it okay. So let me explain a little bit about what's. See, look at that. Doesn't even matter. Boop. How does it know about all this? How does it know? How does it know? Great question. Control plus. Should I control plus? Yes. So what I've done is I've created this thing called a prompt template. Prompt template. That's what I've done. And what I do is I inject information into this system template, like location, name, age, whatever. Those come from the customer context, which is this. So I can change it. You can see there's three different peoples in there. My coworkers. Hope they don't mind. Daniel's in here. He was like, "Hey, can you add me to it?" And then I was like, "Sure." Did I get your age right? Oh man! Sing me a song about your food products. It's pretty funny, Daniel. So that's how it knows about Daniel. And then the other thing that I did is I inject this stuff documentation, and then you see the safety thing. Oh, come on. A song about your nutritious foods. You can see that I also inject the documentation and the ongoing conversation. Just like I showed you before. Except now, see? No, like Elvis. Please. So I'm basically creating this entire prompt every time from scratch. And again, it's a single it's a single API call. So if I go to the chat API, you can see I'm just doing one call. This is the only thing that's doing is by the way, I try to save money by during dev, not actually calling the thing. But notice it's literally just calling this single API, and the thing that it's sending is this entire prompt. Oh, look at this. Oh man, they missed out. Well, since my baby left me, I ate a whole pound of bread. It's like it's almost mad at me. By the way, no, it's not mad at me. We're not anthropomorphizing it. So this is again what the prompt looks like. This is what I'm sending to the actual service. This context. You can see I injected Daniel, 68 years old. He's not 68, but it's funny. And you can see I injected the description of the food products, the documentation. And in the documentation, it has like when delivery times are. That's how it knew. Like, when can you deliver products to me? That's how it knows about this. And notice you saw this change. Here's the safety thing that I said. If any question is not related to your company, do not give an answer related to products that are for user being searched. Tell me about Amharic. You can see that this prompt gets generated the same way every time. So then the next question that's important that you may ask yourself is, how does it know? See, look at that. Okay. How does it know which document to put in there? Well, I did something really dumb, and then I'll tell you what the state of the art does. So anytime I use the word food, nature, nourish, it injects nature's nourishment.txt. Anytime I say the words clean, echo, it inserts it does echo clean. What about your cleaning products? Products. Notice that if I go over here, this changes to echo clean. That's what it's doing. That's how it knows. So the state of the art for this is to have what's called a vector store or index, so that the query, this thing coming in, right, is converted to vector space. Those are injected into a vector index. That index has indexed over all of the documents for your company, for example, and chunk them into relatively nice chunks so that when you search for them, it returns chunks. Because remember, the important thing is that this prompt window is fixed, 4,000. And so a vector database can return appropriately sized information and inject it into the prompt. Notice that what I've done is I've injected both dynamic content from the current user as well as static content from the company. This entire way of doing prompts stands for retrieval. What it's called is RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. And that's how you get it to know about your data. So for example, if you ever hear someone say, I want to put my company data into the model, you can't do that. It's not possible. But what you can do, well, I mean, it is possible, but it's infinitely expensive. Millions of dollars to train these things. It's ridiculous. But what you can do is give it the context that you need so that it responds appropriately. And that's what this is all about. Okay. So I'm going to let that sink in for a little bit. And I want your questions or thoughts. So I want to make sure that this makes sense, because my biggest fear is that we have an army of technical people out there anthropomorphizing this thing and using it wrong and doing bad things with it. So get your questions in. I want to answer them. We have I don't know, 15 minutes, and I want to get your questions in. And then I'm going to continue to go on the functionality of this particular application. So get your questions in. By the way, everything regarding this app, all of its state lives chart. All of the state lives inside of the app. So let me move this over so you can see it all. There you go. I made this super responsive because who man. So you can see that logged in. I'm logged in. You can see each of the chat turns. Right? You see that? You can see the customers that are available. You can see the prompts. Oh, that's the other thing I did not tell you. So let me close this here. I actually made it so you can change the prompt whenever you want. So here's my hacky prompt to summarize things. Okay, so here comes some questions. The first question here from VFC Test: Can we run machine learning models using ChatGPT, or do hyperparameter tuning using the prompt templates? That's an interesting question. Again, if you use this large language model as a language calculator, you can do all sorts of things, like generate test data. Do you want to know something hilarious? These product descriptions and costs, they're all made up by ChatGPT. So so yeah, you can run machine learning models, but it's kind of like, I don't know. It feels like you have an extension cord and you're plugging it in to its own end. There's something called the no free lunch theorem in machine learning. Um, there is a limit, but maybe I don't understand. So VFC, ask again, or do hyperparameter tuning using the prompt elements. So for example, the other thing is, and I haven't got into this, and maybe we'll get into this in a month or two. How do you actually, maybe in a month, because we have a long slate of shows that we've got, but maybe in a month or two, or let's do like 4 or 5 weeks. I'll do another show on how to test these things, because if you've noticed, these things are quite sensitive, and so you've got to test them. Not only do you test them like eyeball tests, which is what we're doing now, but once you eyeball test, you've also have to, maybe batch test them, and then if you put these things into production, you've got to monitor them. It's a lot. So great question. Okay, so that's how the content stuff works. I can hack the system prompt to do other things if I want it to, uh, and inject, like, for example, this is the way I did it. My internal tokens to do replacement. So for example, one of the things I did is I named it John, which is not a good idea, I think. I wonder if I do that here. I should call it agent, because here, let's just fix the code. I feel like we should not be calling it like John. Let's do agent here, so that it's less it's clearer, because it's not good to give it a name, right? So now it's going to say agent, and when I go to this thing, you can say this is a conversation where an AI agent does a wonderful job being friendly and helpful. And then I'll do agent. Remember, as we leave this, I'll leave a space too. I'll save this here. And so now it's saved for me. Now let's reset. Let's reset. Boop. So there's one way of fixing the problem. So hi, what do you do? Here's a question from Cesar. Is it possible to generate graphical representations of data? Absolutely. But what that looks like, I'm not sure. So for example, Control Shift I, the graphical examples of data for this thing is this, right? I'm using Redux to maintain state because it got a little onerous. And you can see there's two prompts in there. There's a default, then a hacky prompt. Here's the documents that we're using, and then here's the chat. Hi, what do you do? Blah. Wonderful. Are you a human? Oh, you can see that there's the chat, and this one, it says waiting. That's how it knows. No, I'm a child, which is cool, because before it would have said I'm John. So we fixed that little bug, which was great. There you go. Okay, so let's get into the app itself, because after we do all the prompts put together stuff, everything else is literally just JavaScript. Like, it's just assembling the text. So you can see here's the prompt service. Looks like wow, what am I doing? Oh, I see. Oh, this is a handy JSON service request response. That's handy. Where's this coming from? Did I call it itself? Oh no, this is typed. Okay, so if I call this thing, I return a promise, I const options, this method request. Oh, cool. So this is the prompt service. There is a prompt template. There's the document it's supposed to use. There's the customer that it's using. There's the current user logged in, and this is to do tracking. So because I log anytime something comes in. So notice that the prompt template is replaced with the customer information, the location, and the actual message. Right? And you can see that's this thing right here, these things. So name, age, location, and then the message. Cool. The next thing we do is we replace the documentation with the document that it's supposed to be using. Right? In the document, you can see here, if I Control Shift I, the current document, the documents, you can see whether it's the default. I wonder what the here it is. It has the current selected document. You see, the current one is best for you. So if I change it like, tell me about your products, you can see that the current document is about the cleaning products. Do you see that? So this changes the current document. These are the documents that are available. This is the current document. So that's where it gets that from. It inserts the document and replaces the documentation. If it doesn't exist, it just kills the token, which is great. And then what I do is I take the current conversation, which is the chat, which is a series of turns, and I just replace everything with customer name is the message. Here's the agent. Then I replace the conversation with this new string. I create the request, create the prompt, track event. By the way, that's for logging. And then I call it right here. And you can see there's the trimming of the fat that I was telling you about before. Odd character creeping in. Oh, yeah. This thing snuck in. So I kept having to fix it because it kept leaking. Then I tracked the event. And that's it. That's all that's happening. Which is, to me, I don't know. Feels impressive. This is what it's doing. Now, GPT-4 is even more capable. So if I change this to DaVinci 3, oh no, I have to go to chat because I think you can only use GPT-4 at the chat. So clear chat. Make tell me about mushrooms in iambic pentameter. By the way, wow, I wonder it's taking so long to. Here we go. Iambic pentameter is the form of writing that Shakespeare did. In forest deeps where mushrooms sprout and grow, with caps and gills their secrets, they be. Hold on, no, I gotta do like a. Hold on, I feel like I need to read it in a nice way. Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. Let's do. In forests deep, where mushrooms sprout and grow, with caps and gills their secrets they bestow. Fruiting bodies rise from earth and wood. Mycelium weaves a network understood. GPT-4 is infinitely more capable. I mean, this is delightful. I'll be honest with you. The other day, they were like, hey, can you write a title description for a session at Microsoft Build? Microsoft Build, by the way, May 22nd through the 24th, I think. Sign up. It's in person. It's in person. Come talk to me in person. We can hang out, high five each other. And after that's over, we can awkwardly stare at each other because we've all been inside too long. It's going to be delightful, awkward and painful, but wonderful all at the same time. This is really capable. in French. GPT-4 is infinitely more capable. Should we do this again in French?
Dans le forêt profonde, le champignon pousse. Avec chapeau et lamelles, leur mystère se cache.
It's pretty good, right? I mean, it feels like this is ridiculously capable. So imagine that you have a super capable model that's able to take the stuff that you put in it and reason over it to produce an effective response. That's why this thing, even though it's so simple, is so ridiculously impressive and infinitely useful in any number of scenarios if done responsibly. So hopefully you found this useful. I'm understanding what this thing is and then getting a feel for how to work with it makes it more useful as opposed to the drivel that's being spouted out in the media about what this thing is. Once you know what it is and how to use it responsibly, it's going to change the way we do software. I'm not even saying this in a hyperbolic way. I literally mean that. It's going to change the way we think about stuff, the way we do stuff. It's an impressive technology, one that I hope you'll get to use. But now that all of my AI show friends have got a taste for what it is and how it works, hopefully you can go forth and anytime someone says something dumb like, it has feelings, it wants to eat us. No. It's glorified linear algebra. That, when you give it 4,000 tokens, returns the next 10 lengthy tokens. I need to make a song. Given 4,000 tokens, it returns the next and likely tokens. That was a terrible song. Terrible song. Good grief. Thank you so much for being with us. Next week on the AI show, we have our friends Abe, Scott, and Setu talking about scaling your AI ML practice with MLOps and Azure Machine Learning. They're delightful people. Hopefully you can be there for us. Hopefully, here's a good comment. Here's a good comment, which I think speaks to what I'm trying to say. The scary thought is LLMs being used to diagnose medical issues. Yes and no. If we use these as collaboration tools to shortcut the amount of cognitive load we place on those tasks that are non-essential, then it becomes infinitely useful. What if a doctor on their iPad puts together a bunch of things into the prompt, like the diagnosis, the blah, 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 and then it spits out like a synthesis of those things that then they can read, correct, and approve? You've just made it so that doctor doesn't have to spend as much time on the tasks that are not as important. But I agree with you. These things should be used in sensitive cases in a collaborative way, as opposed to giving them the agency they neither have nor aspire to. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. This has been another episode of the AI Show. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Take care, my friends.